Something unprecedented is happening in global politics, and the United States might not be able to stop it. Canada, one of America's closest allies and trading partners, is considering a radical shift in its international alliances. Frustrated by the relentless economic pressure from US President Donald Trump, who has imposed crippling tariffs on Canadian goods, Canada is now looking toward Europe for a new economic and political future. Could Canada actually join the European Union? The idea, once dismissed as impossible, is now gaining momentum among political leaders and the public. If this happens, it would mark a dramatic geopolitical shift, signaling the weakening of US influence over its northern neighbor. What would this mean for Canada, the US, and the rest of the world? Stay tuned as we dive into this shocking development. But before we proceed, don't forget to subscribe to the African Web channel for more insightful content on global affairs and political transformations. The once stable relationship between Canada and the United States has been strained like never before. Since taking office, Donald Trump has doubled down on his America First policies, directly targeting Canada's economy with steep tariffs on steel, aluminum, and other key exports. The justification: Trump insists these measures are necessary to protect American jobs and industries, but Canada sees them as an act of economic aggression. As tensions escalate, the US government has increasingly treated Canada as a subordinate rather than an equal partner. Some American politicians have even gone as far as to suggest that Canada should be absorbed as the 51st state, stripping it of its independence. This has only fueled resentment among Canadians, who view Trump's actions as a blatant disregard for their sovereignty. Prime Minister Mark Carney has been vocal in his opposition to these policies, calling them unfair, unnecessary, and detrimental to North American stability. Rather than continuing to struggle under America's economic dominance, he is exploring new opportunities that could permanently change Canada's global standing. This shift in Canada's approach is not just about trade. It's about national identity and long-term strategic interests. Canadian businesses have suffered immensely under these tariffs, leading to rising unemployment and declining economic confidence. Citizens are also becoming increasingly disillusioned with their southern neighbor, questioning whether the so-called special relationship has any real benefits. The Canadian government is now under pressure to act decisively, ensuring that the country is not held hostage by US economic policies. This has led to serious discussions about alternative alliances, with the European Union emerging as the most viable option. Could this be the beginning of a new era for Canada? Amid growing frustration with the United States, Canada is now entertaining an idea that would have seemed far-fetched just a few years ago: joining the European Union. While geographically distant, Canada shares deep economic, cultural, and political ties with Europe. Many Canadians already feel more aligned with European values, particularly on issues like free trade, human rights, and environmental policies. In fact, support for stronger ties with Europe has been growing steadily, and discussions about potential EU membership have become more serious in recent months. Becoming part of the EU would allow Canada to benefit from one of the world's largest single markets, reducing its dependence on American trade. The European Union has already shown interest in strengthening its relationship with Canada, particularly in the wake of the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, which has paved the way for deeper cooperation. However, joining the EU is no simple process, and several major hurdles stand in the way. Apart from economic incentives, there are also political and diplomatic motivations driving this movement. By joining the EU, Canada could secure a stronger position in global affairs, gaining a direct voice in European decision-making processes. This would elevate Canada's influence on international policies, trade regulations, and global climate agreements. Furthermore, with Europe looking for stable partners in an increasingly unstable world, Canada could serve as a reliable ally. However, skeptics argue that such a drastic move could create unintended economic destructions and political backlash. Can Canada overcome these obstacles, or is this ambition simply wishful thinking? For Canada to become a full member of the European Union, it must meet strict eligibility requirements and navigate complex legal barriers. The EU has never accepted a member from outside Europe, and its foundational treaties do not explicitly provide a pathway for a non-European country to join. However, there have been past cases of non-European entities, such as Turkey and Morocco, seeking membership, but they were ultimately unsuccessful. One potential solution would be for the EU to amend its regulations to allow Canada to enter as a special case. Given Canada's strong democratic institutions, economic stability, and cultural similarities with many EU nations, it is arguably more qualified for membership than some existing members. Political negotiations would be essential, and Canada would likely need to adopt certain EU policies and standards, including aligning its financial regulations, trade laws, and immigration policies with those of the European bloc. The legal process would be complex, but not necessarily impossible, especially if both sides are motivated to make it happen. Furthermore, joining the EU would require Canada to undergo significant constitutional adjustments. New treaties and agreements would need to be drafted to define Canada's role within the Union, ensuring that its national interests are protected. There is also the question of public opinion. While support for closer ties with Europe is growing, a decision of this magnitude would require widespread consensus among Canadian citizens. Would the majority of Canadians be willing to embrace such a transformation? And how would the US react if Canada took steps toward formal membership? If Canada successfully joins the European Union, the global balance of power could shift dramatically. Economically, this move would provide Canada with greater access to European markets, reducing its reliance on trade with the United States. It would also give Canadian businesses and workers new opportunities in one of the world's most advanced economic zones. Politically, it would strengthen Canada's voice on the international stage, making it a key player in European decision-making. However, joining the EU would also come with challenges. Canada would need to adjust to European regulations, including adopting the euro or aligning its currency policies with the EU's financial framework. It would also have to rethink its defense agreements, particularly its military cooperation with the US under NATO. Despite these challenges, many Canadians believe that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks, and the growing movement in favor of EU membership is becoming harder to ignore. The idea of Canada leaving behind its traditional alliance with the United States and joining the European Union may have seemed impossible in the past, but Trump's economic policies have made it a real consideration. If Canada follows through with this bold move, it could reshape global politics, weakening US dominance and creating new economic and political opportunities for Canada and Europe alike. The road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the days of Canada blindly following US economic policies are over. What do you think? Should Canada pursue EU membership, or should try to mend its relationship with the US? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the African Web for more in-depth analysis on major global shifts that could redefine our world.